Okay, so let's first talk about the first application. That's social segregation. And what is social segregation? It happens in many big cities. I'm showing you what's happening in LA only, but then you can also see it elsewhere, like in New York, Hong Kong. I'm sure you will see something similar, probably a little bit different from the content that I'm going to describe, but then you see certain type of segregations happening in lots of places. What you're seeing here is a figure I download from National Geographic. Now, what it's showing is that this is a big LA area, and then they try to look at the majority of people living in those areas. And then there is a big orange area you see here, the Alhambra, Temple City, Monterey Park, and those type of things. It's all labeled in orange. And what does that mean? That means it's majority of people living in that area would be Asian. I think it's a majority Chinese, Taiwanese, and well, if you're looking for people from Thai, then probably it would be somewhere near the downtown, I guess, somewhere here. If you're looking for Vietnamese, I think there's another region got lots of Vietnamese. So so this figure, this image shows that the distributions of people from different origin. Okay, so big area, it's purple, so Hispanic. So so you see, it's a very strange phenomenon, not only happening in LA, but then you see there's a Little Tokyo, there's Little Japan, so different cities, so different name, of course. But then you see people from similar background seems to tends to live together, and then the neighborhood might grow in time and then becoming a big community. So this is what people call segregation. So we are seeing it in the social level. So this is social segregation based on the origin of people. Okay, so government might try to mix people together. There are different reasons. One is that we always say, well, especially US always says that they are a big part, a hit part of different race, and they embrace diversity and things like that. But then in terms of the society, it doesn't seem to be too good to have this sort of segregation. Now, in terms of Hong Kong, it's not about the origin of people, but then it's not about the race, but probably it's about the wealthiness of people. So we always say, oh, there's a rich region in Hong Kong, there's poor region. So it's we try to improve. Well, of course, if we know the cause of those, maybe that would list to a reason why we see the poor people become poorer. So we can try to solve the poverty problem in the society. So it becomes a very important issue to study. People will try to think of a reason, explanations of why this happened. And so here comes the first mathematical model. It's 1971. Okay, so 50 years ago. The economist Thomas Schelling, so that's what you're seeing in the middle. So that's a movie clip I download from Nobel Prize. Yeah, he got a Nobel Prize because of this mathematical model. Too bad there's no math prize in the Nobel Prize. All the mathematicians try to use their math skills and try to get different types of prize. And this is an example how really simple mathematics can win the Nobel Prize. So we are talking about this, what we call nowadays a Schelling model, is try to explain the social segregations. There are different examples, say in the Nobel Prize, Economic Prize, how we use math to win that. One very popular example is game theory, right? So we got mathematicians try to develop a very simple game theory and then got the Nobel Prize. Okay, but anyway, so that's not what we try to do here. Let me try to introduce the concept to you. If you are interested in coding, you may play it at your leisure time. It's summer, so it's good to try to play with some simple model yourself. Now, the assumption is very simple. First, domain discretization. Well, we saw in the map where clearly the map is not like a little cell that you're seeing on the bottom here. So of course, you must still try to explain the geometrical relationship as block. Well, in US, the development is very nicely scheduled, like a little block. But of course, in general, in Hong Kong, in some old district, it is not like that. But let's make that assumption. Try to assume that all this house or locations as tiny little cells. For simplicity, we only assume there's two types of agents, and I'm label them as red and blue. Okay, so red and blue can represent different things. One would be whether they support Democrat or Republican, for example. Okay, or the other way around. Okay, so or it could represent a white, non-white, or maybe they represent poor, rich. It doesn't matter. In terms of mathematics, I just have two labels. How to apply it to real life is a problem of the applied mathematicians, or in this case, is economists. Okay. Now, the third type of assumptions that I have to make here is a number called similarity level. Well, I'm living in this tiny little cell, then I will see my neighbor every day. If I just have tiny little bit preference on how much my neighbor is similar to myself, then the mathematical model that Schelling developed will said that, well, it will eventually leads to segregations in the society already. Okay, so there's a tiny little parameter, we call it the similarity level, that certain people, certain agent living in that particular cell can be satisfied. Okay, so can be tolerated. Okay, now what you see on the bottom is an example. Assuming that everybody will be unsatisfied if more than 30% of my neighbor belongs to a different type. Okay, so that 30%, I don't know whether that sounds high or low, but then if I see more than 30% of my neighbor belongs to a different group, then I will move away. Okay, so that's a very simple assumption. Whether that's accurate or not, how good it approximates the real life is a different story, but the model is as simple as that. Okay, now one example is this blue guy. Okay, so this blue guy, let's try to look at his neighbors. Now in his neighbor, there's one blue guy and then 3 red guys. Okay, so that means 75%, so 3 out of 4, 75% of his or her neighbors belongs to a different group. Okay, so he is not happy living in this cell, and so he will move away. Okay, now the algorithm or the mathematical model says, well, you do this, go over everybody in this neighborhood, try to identify those who is not happy. Okay, so in this round, I can identify 4 people. For this guy in particular, all of his neighbor belongs to a different group. For this guy, 2 out of 2, so 100% of this neighbor belongs to a blue group, you go over all the cells and try to identify those who's not happy. And then in the next iteration, in the next time frame, you will try to move them in random to any of those white cells. White cells means it's empty, nobody living there. Okay, so as simple as that. Once you randomly put them into one of those empty cells, then you check everybody again and see whether they're happy or not. Okay, so for example, okay, so one example, how about this guy? Okay, this guy, bottom middle, out of 3 non-empty cells, 2 of those are blue. Okay, so that means 66.666% in different group. So this person, this agent will not be happy, and so this one will move to somewhere else in the next step. Okay, so that you repeat this whole process over and over again until everybody happy, and then you try to look at the pattern you receive. Okay, so this is a very simple model, and this is what we will obtain from a computer. 3 different simulation, same initial condition. Green here means empty space, and then there are 2 different agents, the red one and the blue one. And then this 3 simulation corresponds to 3 different satisfactory levels. So the higher the value there, meaning that I will need more. I will need more of my neighbors to belong to the same level. Then you will see the segregation patterns is more obvious. Okay, so this will lead to the conclusions that Charlene made. Even people got tiny little bit preference in the neighbors, then in the long run, then we will see segregations in the society. Okay, so that's the contributions that he made in order to receive the Nobel Prize. Okay, so everybody here got a chance. Okay, so this is a mathematical model. Then you will ask, it sounds too simple. Is there a way to learn this type of things in a more scientific way? Now, there are different things that people can try to explain and investigate based on this very simple model. One is that we can try to study the relationship between the empty space, percentage of different types of agents, the levels of satisfactions, things like that. So you can try to see how would those parameters in the model affect the ultimate segregation pattern. We didn't have a formal definitions of segregations here, so people can also use this very simple model to try to develop mathematical definitions of segregation, computational efficiency. So is there a way to implement this or do the simulations in a more efficient way, meaning that we spend less time to get the result? Is it possible to study the boundary of each segment? So meaning that when we see segregation, when 2 different types of agents separate by some empty space, is there a way to use that boundary as a way to define segregations, and whether we can measure the change in the length of that boundary and identify the effect or the seriousness of the segregation and things like that. There are many things that people can investigate based on that very simple model. I also saw the applications from physics. Okay, so based on this, then they make it a much bigger scale. So I think the simulations I did here was using only 100 by 100 cells. Okay, so but then as the number of cells goes to infinity, okay, so then when the scale goes to 0, then people actually derive a physics model, and then the length of the boundary or the boundary itself relates to the surface tensions of certain materials, and then they develop the evolutions of the regions based on the surface tensions, and so that becomes a very theoretical mathematical model mathematical problem to solve. Okay, so and we see this every day. I'm sure everybody here use social media. It could be Facebook for my generation, IG for your generation, or maybe a Snapchat already. I don't know. But then there is a observation people identify. So that's called social exclusion. Okay, so well, especially because of the AI technologies on social media. Sometimes the social network platform, they know our preference. No matter how small it is, based on the sharing model, it will eventually give us the social exclusion, meaning that there are some information that we will never be able to see through the social media. Some of our friends might got different opinions on certain social event, but then gradually, well, because the social media knows that we are not happy seeing an opposite opinion, eventually, as the time pass, those opposite opinions seems to be excluded from our connection. Okay, so there's explanations of that based on the sharing model that we described. Okay, so that's also a very interesting applications of this very simple model. There are different types of applications. I think people are more interested in this social exclusion than the typical segregation, social segregations that we mentioned earlier. So this is more modern in terms of applications, and we really want to understand why. This even happens in maybe Netflix. Okay, so Netflix also knows your history. Okay, then gradually, well, of course, it will recommend something for you, but gradually, when you talk to some of your friends who might get a different taste on movies, dramas, and things like that, they recommend certain things for you, but then you never see those movies or drama on your own Netflix. Well, once again, it's a social exclusion. So because Netflix knows probably that's not your taste, so it will not recommend to you and then try to delink those movies and dramas to you. So that's another application. So we see all this around our daily life, but we never notice and we never know there is some math explanations to that. Okay, so second application, digital image processing. Well, like what I said at the beginning, we see and use it every day, even at this particular moment. Well, even on Zoom, I'm not sure whether you notice, when you try to look at the preference, at one point it will ask you whether you would like to improve, well, smooth your face or something. Okay, so it's actually improve the quality of the image. So it can, you can also tune the amount, the scale. So that's another application of digital image processing. I think there are also filters somewhere. Okay, so that's also applications of digital image processing. On the back, you see an application to movie making. This is like, well, it's a little bit dark, but then in the middle, you see some people is playing that bungee jump. But on the right, there's a digital image processing techniques that's able to erase that wire. Okay, so instead of doing it frame by hand, well, you just click, and then there is a computer algorithm to do that for us. Okay, there's another applications I always mention. I'm not sure whether you heard of that. So when was that? 2012, 10 years ago. I think all of you were born already. But sometimes it's quite embarrassing when I show an example. It was like 20 years ago when all the audience it's just 15. But anyway, so this is just a 10 years old example. Okay, so probably you never heard of that, but let me try to explain what happened. It was in a church in Spain. Okay, so 10 years ago, there was some painting on the wall of the church, and some people in the church thinks, oh, the paint peeled off. Let's try to fix them. Okay, so on the left there was a picture taken long time ago, the original one, and the one in the middle is is a picture taken right before this news happened. Okay, probably you never heard of that, but imagine what would happen. It was such a big news that year. Everybody want to see the real thing. Okay, now this is what it becomes afterwards. Okay, so people try to fill in the missing color, and this is what it became eventually. In museum, well, there are experts doing the same thing. So there's a word in museum called in painting. Okay, so they try to fill in the missing color based on the neighborhood and do a best guess. Okay, so but apparently it just it's just a random guess, and that's the ultimate picture in the church. I'm not sure what it happens afterward, but people were so excited about the news. So they try to apply the same technology to some other paintings. So you see Mona Lisa. And then I think October that year, people make it real and make a mask in the Halloween. Okay, so it was such a big news that year. But in mathematics, okay, in math, this is also a math problem. This problem is called digital image in painting. Okay, so the applications is trying to fill in some missing color from in a region in the image. You can see that here on the left, there's an image with some characters, words covered in certain region, and the whole point for this is to try to fill in the missing color in those white region, and this is the result obtained in this journal research article. You can hardly see any words in the image. It looks very real, except probably in this small region. I don't know whether it's a cloud or it's a lake, but then you see this tiny little bit strange behavior, probably because of that those characters too big compared to the feature in the image, so you will not be able to recover everything. But then there is a mathematical model try to guess, provide you a very good guess of what's missing in the original image. The mathematical model, the mathematical problem that you are going to solve, or people developed, is this. And then there is a computer algorithm to find the solution, to give an approximation to this particular math problem. Okay, some notation you saw already. So there's an integral notation. Okay, so there's an integral problem. And then there is a norm. It's also an absolute value, but the formal definitions of that is this. There's a little triangle notation. You will learn it if you are doing a science or engineering degree in the future, or you might know a little bit about calculus already. So this is a certain topic in the multivariable calculus. So it's a calculus for functions of more than one variable. So this is called the total variations of certain thing. And it's just an integral of the norm of the gradient of u. But anyway, so you solve that mathematical problem, then the solutions would be this very nice picture. The reason why I picked this is there's mathematicians, or two mathematicians, but one of them, Tony Chan. Well, I'm not Tony Chan. I hope you remember I'm Tim Lau. So Tony Chan is a former president of HAUST. So this is his research. So so it's a math problem. Okay, another applications of the same technology. So we are solving the same mathematical problem, and then you see that there is a zebra in a cage, and then we try to erase those from the image. On the right hand side, you got solution from two different algorithms. Okay, so two different approaches. Solution looks almost the same, except maybe this tiny little bit, tiny region. Okay, so what it is, there's a flower here. Okay, so one method might not be able to provide you a very good result, but then the other one, so this is from the method they proposed, will be able to give you a very nice image. You can hardly tell there's a cage, wire, no, nothing. So it looks very real. Okay, so this is an image we saw below. Similar technology, you can see that in Photoshop. Okay, so Photoshop, it also use digital image processing for in painting. On the right-hand side, so this is the original image. What I try to do here is to try to get rid of the sign here. Okay, so this is a very typical Photoshop problem. You might also see that on a cell phone. Sometimes when you take a picture, you try to modify it a little bit. It's the same problem. The issue here is that there are patterns in the image. So we call those repeated patterns, texture. Okay, so when there's texture, if you use the same technology like we saw before for in painting, it could give you some very strange result. You see, you can still see some very weird thing here. So that's why sometimes Photoshops or the apps on your cell phone might not give you a very good result. So that's why there are other developments. So people keep proposing different types of mathematical model or different algorithm to solve different type of problem. Even though we are also seeing an image in painting problem, but if you read carefully, the title from what Tony proposed was called non-texture in painting, local non-texture in painting. So that means the method they develop will not allow repeated pattern. Okay, so that's why you see in all those examples, there's no repeated pattern like what we are seeing here. But if you want to incorporate the repeated pattern property in the in painting algorithm, then you will be able to get a much better solution. So if you compare this with that, you can hardly see any strange things in the solutions afterward. And the techniques that they use in this technology is called matrix completion. Okay, so and the same technology has been applied to some other places. Okay, so I will come to that in just a second. There are some other applications in digital image in painting, sorry, digital image processing. This is an application called image segmentation. And the application is to try to separate the image from the background. Okay, there are some medical type image here. That was a project I did long time ago. And the whole point there was to try to help the dentist to segment, to separate the teeth, the bone from the background and the noise. Okay, so the reason why they need to develop this technology is that well, probably you are too young, but when people need to get an implant, a teeth implant, the first step is to try to think about the dentist got to plan where to put the metal implant into the bone and then try to fix the teeth on it. But imagine if the patient already got certain metal implant, and then when the dentist try to take a CT, okay, so CT, well, it's another Nobel Prize product based on some mathematics. Okay, so but anyway, so let me try to describe that in the future when I got a chance. But then when the X-ray hit the metal implant, it will be reflected, and then you will see there are lots of different noise in the image. You will not be able to clearly identify whether that thing is actually part of the bone or whether it's just a noise. So at that point, the dentist would like to develop the software to develop a mathematical model and algorithm, try to separate that noise from the bone. Okay, so that's a segmentation application. We might have used that in our daily life, well, for the dentist, but then we never know there are so much math behind. Surveillance video. So there's automatic detections of moving object. So it's actually use the same technology I described. So use a matrix completion. So that would be one applications of the same technology to a different application. When we talk about matrix completions earlier, we use the textual imaging painting as an example, but then now using the same mathematical model, we can try to apply it for surveillance video moving object detection. The whole point is try to detect the moving object from a sequence of images. Okay, so in terms of mathematics, they are exactly the same, even though the application could be different. So I guess that's a nice thing about doing a computational math research. We develop certain technology, we develop certain algorithm. We can try to see whether we can apply it to this particular application, that application, and try to make the big impact. And we see this in many, many cases. My PhD research is on one algorithm, try to model the evolutions of interface. Okay, you can imagine that as a gas bubble moving in water. You can imagine that, well, we developed research to do simulations of liquid crystal. So you can imagine it's a growth of the snowflake. Okay, when you control the environment, how would the snowflake grow in time? Same technology, because you're trying to model the evolutions of the interface. So we were able to use that mathematical algorithm to different types of applications. So that's exactly what we are seeing here. With the matrix completions, when we try to think about this problem as a matrix problem and try to investigate the rank of the matrix. Well, I'm not sure whether you heard of the word rank, but anyway, we try to explore certain properties of this matrix, and then we were able to improve the image, the video, and all sorts of things. People also apply the same technology to solve what is called the Netflix problem. Well, it's kind of old problem, like 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. It's called Netflix challenge, 2006. Netflix posed a challenge. Well, at that time, well, it's still quite old in terms of modern technology. Netflix would like to investigate certain things on its recommendation system. Okay, so well, of course, it's very mature nowadays. We watch certain movies, then it recommends many things for you. We watch certain clips on YouTube, then suddenly everything pops up and they recommend something that seems like we would be interested in. But 2006, the technology was not that mature. So Netflix posed a challenge to the academic community. So at that time, many users, well, how many users? 4,800, so 480,000 users. And then at that time, there were like 17,000 movies. And then out of those, so many users, well, at that time, once people watch movies and they can click how many stars I would like to put over there. Okay, so I give it a 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. Okay, so it's not like now whether I just like it or not. But at that time, user can actually provide some more information. At that time, Netflix released a large number of data, 480,000 users for 17.7 thousand movies. Well, of course, if you look at that big Excel table, many more entries than the 100 millions rating that Netflix released at that time. Okay, so lots of data. Now the challenge is the following. It asks the academia whether we can develop the algorithm to guess what are the missing entries in that Excel table. Then Netflix will try to use your solutions and compare with some hidden rating from those users. Okay, now the more they match, the higher the chance you will get the prize. Okay, Now the competitions went for 3 years, and then 2009 they stopped that challenge because some people so clever they are able to try to search the web and identify exactly the identity of certain users, and that's a privacy issue at that time. So that's a big problem, privacy issue, because then you can identify what sort of movie certain people had already watched. Okay, I clearly did not allow Netflix to release that information to the public, but then for some reason people know what sort of movie that I watch. So people sue Netflix, and so Netflix stopped that challenge and then announced others that we got a winners that year. But it actually stimulates the research in the research community, in the academia. So people actually spend time to develop different methods for the recommendation system. If you can link this problem to what we saw before, it's exactly the same in painting problem. We are given certain value somewhere, and then what we are asked to do is to try to fill in something in somewhere else. Okay, exactly the same problem we saw earlier. No matter whether it is image in painting problem or the surveillance video, the moving object detection, in terms of mathematics, they are very similar. Okay, so that's why I said that we are able to use the same technology and then try to solve different type of problems. Okay, so once again, we see all these things every day, but then we never notice there's so much math behind. Okay, so now next time when you try to watch YouTube and try to think about, oh, how come YouTube recommend this for me, that there is a reason. Okay, there's a reason because of the recommendation system, because of your habits that provide certain information behind, and then there is a mathematical model that able to recommend, generate something related to your behavior, even though you might not notice, but then your footprint on the web can clearly identify who you are.